Well, good morning. So today I'm going to start with a phrase. I don't know if this phrase is still used anymore, and you may perhaps have to be of a certain age to be familiar with it. Could be wrong. It's something I certainly grew up with in school. That was way back in the mid-1960s, and dinosaurs roamed the earth. And it might still be in use today. I'm thinking it might not be, to call someone a pet. In today's age, I don't know if that's quite right, but if you're not familiar with the phrase teacher's pet, I remember kindergarten. There were two girls. They were clearly teacher's pets. What did that mean? Well, they were always volunteering. They were very enthusiastic about things, and the teacher responded to that, right? The teacher wanted to encourage that behavior, so they would get special responsibilities, special duties. They were seen, at least in the eyes of their classmates, as special. And the other kids usually said it disparagingly. You're such a teacher's pet. Or worse, brown noser, right? So that's something that I remember very vividly. It's usually in the younger, like K through 5 maybe. So this may seem rather strange to you, but I'm going to apply that phrase to 3 of Jesus's apostles. They're his disciples, but they're apostles. They walked with Jesus when he walked the earth fully human and fully God. They are Peter, John, and James. And generally what they are referred to as Jesus's inner circle, not teacher's pets. But I kind of see the similarity or the parallel there. Now, when we look at these 3, just their whole story is interesting, how they are called by Christ. So Jesus calls his 12 apostles, and that happened in different ways. Matthew, the tax collector, was in his booth. Jesus, come follow me. In the case of Peter, John, and James, of the 12, they're kind of their own subset. You see, they were business partners in the fishing industry. Peter had a boat, James and John and their father Zebedee had a boat. And they were partners, and it's very possible that it was a lucrative business. Along one day comes Jesus, and he is preaching at the shore, and he asks Peter if he can kind of use his boat as a floating stage or platform that people will better be able to hear. And Peter's like, yeah, fine. And Jesus tells him to put out for a catch in the deeper water than where he is. And Peter's like, teacher, master, I can't remember which word he uses, we have been at this all night and we haven't caught a thing. But because you ask, I will do it. And Peter does that, and you may know the story. It's called the miraculous catch. After all night of fishing with no luck, and we don't know why they were fishing all night. If you watch the series The Chosen, they have a theory. We don't know. We do not know why, okay? But they were, and they got nothing. And now, 2 boats full. Peter's boat and John and James and Zebedee's boat, filled to the brim with fish. So it's unusual. First, these guys knew each other. They were close, partners. And then Jesus performs this amazing miracle before he calls them. So from the beginning, the relationship was a little different than the other 9. And Peter famously says, go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man. Get up, come follow me. And that's what happens. So it is in that they come to be called the inner circle, not because of how Jesus called them, but what would happen. These guys were chosen by Jesus to be present at some of the most critical and famous moments, infamous perhaps, in the life and ministry of Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And we're going to walk through those today. And as we walk through these amazing moments to which these guys are privileged, I want you to think about something. One, you in Jesus's inner circle. Perhaps you can, all right, well, what does that look like? Well, keep this running in the software back here. Second, do you have an inner circle? How did you choose them? 3, are you in someone else's inner circle? How did they choose you? And I ask you to think about those roles as we walk through these 3 guys being in Jesus' inner circle and what it means for us. So there are, as I said, 3 pivotal, critical, famous moments in Jesus' life and ministry where these 3 guys were given exclusive front row seats. The other disciples, apostles, not there. They are. The Transfiguration, a moment when Jesus reveals the full glory of God, those 3 and those 3 alone. The raising from the dead of Jairus' daughter, a huge moment. Jairus, a synagogue leader, Jewish important guy. And his daughter, the beneficiary of a miracle, and those 3 guys are there. And then, perhaps the darkest moment of Jesus' life before he's actually taken away, agony in the Garden of Gethsemane. Those 3 guys are there. So let's walk through these one at a time. Let's start with the Transfiguration, and I'm reading from the NIV. It is Matthew chapter 8. Matthew chapter 17, verses 1 through 8. Now the Transfiguration, the glory of God being presented to these 3 disciples, appears in what's called the Synoptic Gospels. What are the Synoptic Gospels? They're Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Synoptic, 2 Latin words, synchronized and optical. Synoptic, seeing together. And their biographies of Jesus are close. There are differences. They are close. John's gospel is very different. He does not include the story, which is interesting because he experienced it in life. So, before we get to that, we are going to go back one verse, one chapter, to chapter Matthew 16, 28. That is the last verse of Matthew 16. And here, Matthew reports that Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." This is often used by unbelievers. Jesus got it wrong. Jesus made a mistake. He said some of the original 12 were going to be alive when he returns. Where is he? They're dead. I guess Jesus got it wrong. So we can just kind of ignore this Bible stuff. It's all wrong. No, no, and no. Jesus was not referring to the moment when he would return at the end of time. He was referring to the Transfiguration. And this verse that I just read appears in all 3 synoptics before the Transfiguration story. And they all say it happened about a week later. Okay? Very important. So, Matthew 17. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun. His clothes became as white as the light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Now, let's just stop there, okay? Jesus just presented himself in the full glory of God. We're told something humans don't get to see. And then two of the most famous dead prophets, Elijah and Moses, appear before them. What does Peter say? Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I'll put up 3 shelters. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. We'll camp out. I'll do s'mores. It'll be great." That's Peter. And that's why I love these guys. And this is something I said I want to kind of have you put yourself in the place of the inner circle here. Here's what's beautiful about this. These guys weren't very sharp. Were they chosen because they're the best of the best, the creme de la creme? There really was no cream in that crop of 12, to be perfectly candid with you. And these guys did not rise above the other 9, with, of course, the obvious exception of Judas. They weren't chosen because they were the best. They weren't chosen because they were the brightest. They weren't chosen because they had the greatest keen insight or anything like that. In fact, they were chosen for just the opposite reason. They didn't have that. Peter had no idea what he was saying. As Peter was still speaking, a bright cloud enveloped them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." Listen to him. Here's what I believe. This is Jerry, not Jesus. This is what I believe. It goes like this. Listen to him. They were 3 impetuous, impulsive goofballs. Boy, you're being hard on these guys. No. I rejoice in the fact that they are impetuous, impulsive goofballs. You know why? Because I know one. I'm excited that I'm not alone in this. They can mess up, and they do mess up, and it doesn't matter because of God's grace. And they didn't have to be of a certain quality or caliber or experience or even character to be a disciple, let alone the inner circle. What amazing hope for us. God's grace for us. That's what I want you to carry as you think about yourself in this position. You in Jesus' inner circle, are you? Do you have an inner circle? And are you in someone else's inner circle? Keep running this through your mind as we walk through this. So that's the first moment. The second moment is, as I mentioned, the raising of Jairus' daughter. And we find this in Mark 5. But if you're going to read along, again, NIV, raising Jairus' daughter, what we are actually going to be doing is Mark 21, and then we're going to start with Mark 5, verse 21. But then what we're going to do is there is the portion in there where the bleeding woman interrupts Jesus as he's going with Jairus to his daughter. So we're going to read over that today. So I'll just kind of walk you through that as we get there. So Mark chapter 5, verse 21. When Jesus had again crossed over by a boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue rulers, a man named Jairus, came there. So he would be friends with the people who want to kill Jesus, right? He fell at Jesus' feet and pleaded earnestly with him. "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. Let's take a pause here. Look at the amazing faith this man is showing. And the 3 with him, Peter, James, and John, they're seeing this. Well, this guy's a synagogue ruler. And man, he is all in on this Jesus thing. This is amazing. This is just amazing. Look at the faith. This is a lesson for them. Now, we are going to jump ahead to verse 35. As I said, we're going to skip over the episode with the bleeding woman. And we pick up with Jairus on verse 35, Mark 5. While Jesus was still speaking, some men came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue ruler. "Your daughter is dead," they said. "Why bother the teacher anymore?" "Sorry, she died." Now, here could have been a couple of responses to that. That precious time, and Mom, my daughter's dead. We don't see him doing that. Jesus could have said, I know, I'm really sorry these things happen. Timing sometimes just doesn't work out, and I'm really sorry that your little girl's... No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that at all, now did he? Ignoring what the people said. They said, "Don't bother this guy anymore, your daughter's dead." Jesus just ignored that. And he told Jairus, the synagogue ruler, "Don't be afraid, just believe." Oh, listen to that. Don't be afraid, just believe. That's what Jesus says to us every second, every minute, of every hour, of every day of our lives. If we've accepted Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, acknowledge that he came for us to defeat sin once and for all, so we have his grace to live in the here and now and eternity with him forever. Because all of that is true. All of that is true. Don't be afraid of anything. Just believe in him for everything. That's what he's telling Jairus, and he's telling us through that. He did not let anyone follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue ruler, Jairus, Jesus saw a commotion with people crying and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and wailing? This child is not dead, but asleep." And they laugh at him. Imagine if you're the three with him. Well, this is awkward. I think it's another lesson. Again, Jerry, not Jesus, but I think it's another lesson. Hey, you guys, you'll have days like this. You're going to be mocked. You're going to be ridiculed. Can't be done. But he models for them how to deal with it. He tells those people, "Get out. Get out." After he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha koum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl stood up and walked around. She was 12 years old. At this, they were completely astonished. He gave strict orders to not let anyone know about this and told them to give her something to eat. Wow. Imagine. It says everyone was astonished. That includes the three. Whoa, did you see that? And Peter will have a moment very similar to this in his ministry after Jesus ascended. This is preparation. These guys weren't getting special treatment. No, because they needed this time with Jesus, in my opinion. To become the leaders after his death and ascension back into heaven in the first century. They'd be prominent. James would be the first of the original 12 to be martyred. John would live to be the longest and apparently the only one to die of natural causes. But they would have important roles. And Jesus, I think, in this inner circle stuff, not because like a president's inner circle, the greatest minds, no, those in the greatest need. The final moment, agony in the garden, and we find this in Mark 14, starting with chapter 32. Verse 32. Mark 14, verse 32. Now, the other two episodes are amazing, what we call mountaintop moments, okay? The transfiguration is literally a mountaintop moment. Happens on a mountain. But Jairus' daughter being raised from the dead, one of these amazing positive moments in Jesus' life. The last is agony in Gethsemane, where Jesus is agonizing over his impending death, praying to the Father in the Garden of Gethsemane. This time, he's the one in need. This one is for him. That's why these three are there this time. He wants companionship. He wants his brothers. He wants love. He wants them to be there to support and encourage him. And they're the inner circle, so they come through, right? They fail miserably. Just miserably. Let's read. Starting Mark 14, verse 32. They went to a place called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took Peter, James, and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he said to them. "Stay here and keep watch." Going a little farther, he fell to the ground and prayed that if possible, the hour might pass him. "Abba, Father," he said, "everything is possible for you. Take this cup from me. Yet not what I will, but what you will." In other words, I know you could end this, but I also know you won't, because that's the plan. Then he returned to the disciples and found them sleeping. "Simon," he said to Peter, "are you asleep? Could you not keep watch for 1 hour? Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation." But he does. "The spirit is willing, but the body is weak." He sweats blood practically, Luke reports. And these guys fell asleep on him. It wraps up with these two verses. Returning the third time, he said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Enough! The hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." Did he unfriend them? Did he cancel them? No. Come on, let's go. This is going to get a lot worse. Inner circle. And they fail him miserably. But his grace is enough. And then it gets a lot worse for Peter. And I'm just going to summarize this from John 18, where Peter denies Jesus 3 times. Jesus told him he would. "Oh, I will die for you, Lord," blah, 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 blah. And Jesus is like, "No, actually, 3 times you will deny knowing me before the rooster crows." And that's what happens. They all scatter, after the crucifixion. But at this point, they don't know what to do. Peter is near, and he's asked 3 times. "You're one of them, right?" "No." You know him, right?" "No, come on, your accent. You're with them." "No." And then the rooster crows, as Jesus predicted. There's no coming back from that, right? I mean, inner circle, inner schmirkle. This is done. This guy is... No. In fact, Peter is reinstated. When Jesus rises from the dead, he goes to an area that he knows that his guys are supposed to go to. Peter decides to go fishing. Some of the apostles go with him. Jesus is on the shore, but they don't recognize him. And he tells them to try on the other side of the boat. They aren't having any luck. And it's just like the first miraculous catch. It happens again. And John recognizes it's Jesus because of that. He goes, "It is the Lord." Peter swims to him, jumps in the water, swims to him. And then Jesus, these guys all scattered on him. They all freaked out. What does he do? Feeds them breakfast. And I don't think Peter knew what was going on. Again, just me. But I don't think Peter knew what was going on. Jesus restores him. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said. "You know that I love you." "Yeah, but Peter, did you forget what you did?" I don't think he understands he's being reinstated here. Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Again, Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He answered, Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said, Take care of my sheep. The third time, he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, Do you love me? Come on, you know. He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. Jesus said, Feed my sheep. Peter was right about one thing. Jesus did know all, without a doubt. And he knew that Peter loved him. That's why Peter was forgiven and restored. So what? What does this mean for us? Have you ever fallen asleep on or fled Jesus? Do you realize you're forgiven if you have, if he lives in your heart? Have others fallen asleep on or fled you? Have you forgiven them? Even if they've never come back, even if they haven't apologized. Have you fallen asleep on or fled others? And were you given grace? Because you see, now what's in it for you is God's grace. God's grace. The guys in the inner circle weren't special. They needed a special amount of God's grace, and they got it. We're all teachers' pets. Even at our worst. Do we receive that grace and extend it to others as Jesus did? Even at our worst, God's grace, just like for his inner circle, is enough for us. God bless.